Okay, so these symbols should look somewhat familiar to you. My last class had seen them, so I know Mr. Foreman taught them to you. What we're going to do is we're going to add some notes to these papers and write on some things that we need to know. And so we're going to write on the name of the sign and a few other words that you might use in order, if you might see them in a word problem, to know which sign to use. Okay. Does anyone know what the name of this sign would be? This is your greater than sign. So what I want you to do is underneath, is you're going to write greater than.
In pen or?
I'm using a pen. If you want to, if your pencil shows up, you can use pencil. If you have a pen, you can use pencil. And I'm putting a box around it because that's the main name that I'm using is greater than. It's going to have some other names that could show up in a word problem, but I want you to know the main name for this is greater than. That's the one you'll see most of the time, but there are some others. Alright, so I'll go ahead and give you a few to get you started. Well, actually, I'll let you think of them first. Can you think of any words that mean the same as greater than, Harley?
More than.
More than, good.
Will we write it down?
We're writing these down, yes. I want the main thing greater than boxed in, and then we're going to list a few things underneath it that mean the same thing. Okay, can you think of any others, Dylan?
Older than?
Older than, good. Weston?
Skinnier than.
No, skinnier than. Would it be bigger? Would it be the same as bigger than something?
Well, I didn't want to say fatter because I didn't want to offend anyone.
So maybe larger than?
There you go.
Fatter
than. Fluffier than.
I'm going to try to stick with words that I know you might actually see in a word problem. I could see larger than being in a word problem, so we'll stick with larger than. Dylan?
Oh, what? Wait. Oh, never mind.
I know one.
I thought he put down. Never mind. I thought you put down.
All right, Blake.
Taller than.
Taller than. Good. Anyone think of another one, Riley?
Or better than that. I wouldn't say that.
Let me think. It maybe could be, because if you're talking about like which job is better than the other, the one that has more money would be better. So I would say it's a maybe, yeah. You might see that one. But sometimes it's not going to be better than, because what about if you're spending money? You wouldn't, like, better than wouldn't always be the bigger amount, you know? So I'm going to put kind of a question mark by this one. It's just a sometimes one on that, okay? Any others you can think of? I think we got most of them. The other one that I've noticed in problems before is higher than, because sometimes there's like about the temperature, or about how high an airplane is in the sky, or something like that. So higher than.
Bigger than?
Bigger than would work.
We just have the
Same as larger than, but if you want to add it, you can. So I think you get the point. Greater than is talking about things that are bigger. They're more than, they're older, they're taller, they're bigger, those types of things. Okay. All right. So let's move on to the symbol over here. David, what would you call this symbol over here?
Less than.
This is our less than. I'm going to put a box around it because that's the main name, but there's going to be some other words that could be using the same thing as that.
Smaller than?
All right. Clayton.
Younger than.
Younger than. Good. Dylan.
Shorter than.
Shorter than. That would work. Nadine.
I was gonna say shorter than.
Smaller than.
Smaller than.
Smaller than. Harley.
Less than.
We already have less than's the main one, but yes, it definitely
Now
goes.
I can use one, right? Skinnier
Yes.
than.
And I changed my last class. They said skinnier. I've never seen a problem that says skinnier than, but I have seen it that says thinner than. So thin, skinny, but thinner. If you want to put skinnier, you can. But it's not ever going to be about a person being skinny, but it might be about some object being thinner than another object. Oh, thinner than, sorry, I forgot my than. Any others? Madison? Lower than, good.
I think that's about it.
Taylor?
Would colder than?
Let me think.
No.
Yeah, it could be.
Huh.
The other one that I've heard before that goes with this is fewer than.
Oh, yeah.
Now, we're going to come back. This sheet will be useful to us when we get into Friday's lesson, which is the word problems, writing the equation or inequalities from word problems. So this is just kind of going to get us brainstorming. So we're in a word problem. We kind of know which symbol is the best fit. All right. Are y'all ready to move on to the next row?
No.
No,
Yes, I remember seeing them, but I can't exactly remember the Me too.
I'm not going to erase yet because I want everyone to get these copied. Is there anyone that still needs time copying?
Oh, my. It looks green.
I'm glad yours doesn't bounce. Mr. Bramer's does.
You know,
Hurts my
some
eyes.
days it does, and I have to restart my
Oh,
computer and then it'll.
It hurts my
come back.
eyes.
Why'd you pick this color pencil?
It's not
I
that
had a lot of
bad.
it.
You're not gonna,
It's not
you're
that
gonna live to
bright.
see tomorrow, okay? Maybe.
I'm not it.
I just give it a black eye.
All right. Raise your hand if you still don't have it copied. All right, I'm going to go ahead and write this in. All right, so we've got these other two symbols, and I have been assured that you have learned these before.
Yeah.
Rayleigh, what's this one called?
Greater than or equal.
Greater than or equal to. Good.
We put an equal sign.
No, you need to write it out, the name of it. Greater than or equal to. That's the whole name of that symbol.
He's always. And we box it.
We'll box it because that's the name of it. Now, the way they get this symbol, I'm sure Mr. Foreman explained this to you. Notice it has half of an equal sign in it, and then it has the greater than sign in it. That's how they got it. It's greater than, and then it's got that one bar of the equal sign or equal to. Okay? And I want you to think about what it would mean. So, for example, if I say greater than or equal to, you need at least a 90 in order to get a popcorn on Friday. Okay?
For real?
Then that would mean that you could get exactly a 90, which means the equal sign, or you could have more than 90. That's what that's talking about. It's where the number is included. If you have to have at least a 90, then that includes the 90, right? So at least is one of the words that goes with this. So underneath it, write at least.
Do we actually get popcorn Friday?
No. If Miss Keith makes it.
Oh. Everybody go ask Miss Kitty.
No, then she won't.
Okay, we'll sign a petition.
Okay. The other one that goes with this one is kind of weird sounding. No less than.
Oh, that's so weird.
So let's do it in the same context. Let's use that same example. If you have no less than a 90, then you can go get popcorn. So that means you have nothing less than a 90, which means you could have 90s or above. Does that kind of make sense? So these are the main two that I've seen that go with the greater than or equal to. Okay. As we get into the word problems on Friday, we'll now add a few more to our list. Okay. This symbol over here, Weston. Less than or equal to. Good. Okay. So this type of example is the opposite. You want it to be equal to something or smaller. So maybe if you have 3 absences or less, then you get a reward day. Just making this up. So 3 absences or less. So that means it includes the 3 because it has the equal sign, or it's anything less than 3. Okay. So the words we're going to write here. Any ideas? What's the opposite of at least?
No proposal.
At most. That means at most you can have 3 tardies.
And no.
Or 3 absences, whatever.
more than.
Or no more than. Good.
That's it?
Those are the most common ones. As we get into word problems and we see some that we might be using, we may add to this sheet. But we're going to go ahead and file it in our keep section, because this is going to be something we want to keep and look back at throughout this. So file this in your keep section. And then we've got some notes.
Do we have any homework tonight?
Yeah, no homework.
Can we write this in pen?
Do you need me to leave my binder here today?
I do need you to remind me here today, yes.
Can we leave?
Let's write in pencil because we're going to be working some problems on this. Part of it we're just writing in, but we are going to be working some problems, so we need our pencils for this.
Today's the last day of September, right?
Yes, tomorrow is deer season. Opening day of deer season.
The what?
Deer. It's the same thing, deer season.
But you can't.
You can't shoot
What's the difference between just a doe and a deer? A doe
I
is
said,
just-
I said deer season.
No, it's the-
I thought you said
Okay. Open and close dots. So last year, Mr. Foreman went over with you, when you use the different symbols and you put them on a number line, you have open and closed dots. So we're going to try to remember which one is which. So on the first blank, it says when graphing inequalities, a blank dot is used when the value is not included in the situation.
open.
So it's talking about less than and greater than. So I want you to come out to the side over here and write your less than and greater than sign, greater than and less than sign. And when graphing an inequality, an open dot is used. So I make these little weird things to remind myself. So right here, I
I
have
remember these.
the less than and greater than sign have an open dot.
Looks like a face.
Okay. And then
Oh, I know what you're
the
talking about,
next
Jake.
one is going to be a closed dot. Indicates the value is included in the solution. So this is going to be these two symbols right here. Your greater than or equal to or less than or equal to. And their dots are going to be shaded in.
Oh.
Okay. So let's look at our examples. This is just how they are going to look on a number line. Let me tell you how we're going to extend it from last year. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be solving algebraic problems like we have been. But this time, when you get your answer, you're going to graph them on the number line. Okay? So x is greater than negative 5. What type of circle am I going to have, Amelia? Open or closed? Look at your little face things we drew. If it has this sign right here, what kind of circle is it?
Open.
Open. And I usually draw them on here, but my last class said y'all just drew them above. So if you're used to doing them above, that's fine. You'll probably notice me a lot of times I'll forget and I draw them on the number line. That's the same thing. Okay. Now, the thing that's important on here, always, and we're going to write this out by example, always look at the x to decide which way to shade. And this is important because a lot of times you get your answer like this, x is greater than negative 5. So it's easy to know which way to shade. If x is greater than negative 5, then I want to shade everything greater. So that means I'm going to go this way. Okay. Everything bigger than negative 5. If you remember when you learn about number lines, when you go to the left, everything is smaller. When you move to the right, everything is greater, it's bigger. Okay? So it's going to look something like this. Why it's important, some people say, well, I just whatever direction the arrow points, that's the way I shade. That works sometimes, but what if, Madison, I need your attention this way. What if I had something like this? 5 is less than x. Well, the arrow is pointing to the left, so some people say, oh, shade left. But what did I tell you? Always look at the x. Is x bigger than 5 or smaller than 5? Bigger. If x is bigger, then I shade everything bigger. You always shade what x is. If x is bigger, you shade bigger. If x is smaller, you shade smaller. Yes?
And the negatives, what I don't get is how the, like, 3 is bigger than 4.
Well, it's hard to explain, but if you think about a number line, everything to the right is bigger. So 0 is bigger than -1. You agree with that? Or you'd rather have $0 and be in the whole -$1, right? As you move down, if you're in the whole -$2, that means you owe me $2. If you are a -1, you only owe me $1. So which one's better for you? Which one's more money for you?
0.
Or if you owe me -1, that's better than -2, right?
Okay.
Because -1 is higher. So that means you still have more money. If you only owe me $1, you get to keep more money. If you owe me if you're a -$14, that means you owe me $14. That means you have less money. So the further down you get, the less you have, the smaller
Okay.
you are.
Does that necklace or that thing not feel like it's choking you?
No, and I had to move it up because when it's down, it cuts my head off on the video. All right. All right. Right here, x is greater than or equal to -4. David, do I need an open or closed circle?
Close.
Closed circle on the -4. Now, look at your x. Is x bigger than -4 or smaller?
Smaller.
X is, remember how you learned your little alligator mouse when you were in elementary? Whichever one you're eating, that's the bigger one, right? I'm eating the x. That means x is bigger. So which way should I shade? To the left or to the right?
Oh, right.
Right is always bigger. Think about left is less, so both start with an L. To the right is greater. Greater has the R in it. Okay. X is less than 10. Harley, would you say an open or closed circle?
Open.
Open, good. Always look at your X. Is X smaller than 10 or bigger than 10, Madison? If X is smaller, should I shade left or right, Raul? Left. Good. Next, X is less than or equal to 2. Dylan, open or closed circle?
Close.
Close. And Jade, which way should I shade? To the left, because X is smaller than 2 or equal to 2, so I'm shading to the left. Okay, is this ringing a bell from last year?
Yes. At first, I remember seeing them, but I can't remember what they were at all.
Okay. Let's go down to the key concepts here. This is something that my last class said was a little bit new to them, so let's see if you did learn it last year, if it's new to you also. Basically, this talks about when we're solving these algebraic inequalities, okay? When, the first blank right here is when you add or subtract when you add or subtract a positive or negative number on both sides. Basically, you do it just the same as always. You're going to keep the sign in the same direction. Adding and subtracting doesn't change the sign. And I'll show you what I mean in a minute. So those blanks there, adding, subtracting, and then that one, keep the sign. When I say sign, I'm talking about these things, your inequality signs. These are your 4 signs. Okay. This next one, when multiplying or dividing, so these next 2 blanks, that next bullet, when multiplying or dividing, and this one is the most important one, so I'm going to put a big box around this one, put a big star by it. This rule is the most important rule that will have this unit. When multiplying or dividing by a negative number, okay, when multiplying or dividing by a negative number, you must flip the sign. So flip the sign is that next blank. Well, I did, the download's going further than it ever has, but it freezes up every time I won't complete.
Whoa.
See, and every time, this is the furthest it's ever gone. Usually it pops up and says they can't do it because it's open. But I know it's not open because I opened it. But I cannot get it to go any further now. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to write the problem on the board for the next few. So you have your blanks filled in? I'll just turn this off so you can Alright, so that first problem underneath, if you will look at it, says 3x plus 4 greater than or equal to 16. Okay, you're going to set it up just like we did our solving equations, but there's no equal sign. That's the only difference. Y'all notice that? So instead of drawing a line down my equal sign, I'll just draw a line down my inequality sign, greater than or less than or whatever's there. But I'm going to start by solving it the same way. So Rayleigh, get me started.
-4.
Good. I'm going to -4 on both sides. 16 take away 4 gets me what?
12.
Good. Alright, Maddie B, what's next?
Divide by 3.
Good. So divide both sides by 3. What's 12 divided by 3, Lexi? 4. Now, I want you to look at my last step, the multiplying or dividing step. That's when we put the big star by, that's the most important. Did I multiply both sides by a positive or a negative? Positive. If you multiply or divide by a positive, you keep this sign right here facing the exact same direction. So it's going to be x is greater than or equal to 4. Okay, so it's very similar to our last unit, right? You should see the connections. We're doing basically the same thing. Instead of bringing down an equal sign, we bring down this sign. All right, the biggest mistakes I see on this unit are people forget and they want to put an equal sign right here. Okay. And the other mistake will be when we get to the dividing by negatives, you forget to flip your sign. Those are the two mistakes I always see. Now, underneath you have a number line. And when we do our number lines in here, if it doesn't have anything on it, this is how I want you to do your number lines. So everyone listen up. I want you to put 3 marks on your number line. That's all you have to show. Whatever answer you get, I want you to put it in the middle. And then I want you to fill in the surrounding values. So I have a 4 right here, so I'm going to put a 5 over here and a 3 right here. So you're just going to kind of make your own number line. All right, Madison A, open or close circle. Look at your signs and go back and look at your notes or read your little pictures. How do you know? What's the clue that tells you? Yeah, if it has the line underneath, that's your clue to make it closed. So I'm going to put my closed circle above my 4. Look at your x. Is x bigger than 4 or smaller than 4, David?
Bigger. No, smaller.
How would you read this? X is greater. Yes. Remember your little alligator mouth is eating x. X is bigger. So Taylor, which way should I shade? To the right. I'm making my arrow go to the right. So this means my answer could be exactly x, or it could be anything bigger than x, would make this inequality true. Okay, the next one. 7 minus 2x is greater than 11. So I'm going to draw my line down my inequality sign this time. And Dylan, get me started.
You subtract 7 on both sides.
Good. I'm going to subtract 7 on both sides. What should I bring down on the left, Harley?
-2.
Yes, make sure to bring down your negative. So negative 2x. And then over here, 11 minus 7 gets me what, Jade?
4.
And then my next step, Clayton.
Divide by -2.
Good. All right, use your triangle rule here. What's 4 divided by -2, Blake?
Is -2.
Correct. Now, go back to my last step. What did I divide both sides by? Positive or negative? Negative. Remember that thing we starred in your notes? When you multiply to both sides by a negative, you must do what? Flip your sign. What I mean by flipping your sign is it started off being this sign right here, right? I just want to flip it around backwards. Okay? So I want to take this sign and I want to flip it around. And that would be my answer. If you don't flip it, your answer is wrong. Okay? So that's a very important thing. You've got to train your brain. When you multiply or divide both sides by a negative, you must flip your sign. Yes?
So how do you tell if you flip it, or if you're supposed to flip it, or if
Okay, you look at your last step right here on your division, or if you're multiplying for your last step, whatever your last step is on multiplying or dividing. If it's a negative on both sides that you divide it by, that's when you flip. If it's positive, you leave it alone. Okay? Alright, so let's make it on our number line. So you're going to put your 3 values on your number line. So I'm going to fill in my -1, -2, -3. Open or close circle, Rayleigh?
Open.
Open. Raul, which way should I shade, left or right?
Left.
Yes, because X is less than, it's smaller than, that means I'm shading to the left.
This is Rich.
Yes.
Would it be okay if I put -1 to the left of -2, or does it have to be like that?
It has to be like this because of what Blake was just asking about is on your number line. You want to draw it how it would actually be on a number line. And remember on the negative side of your number line, if you start at 0, and you start counting backwards, -1, -2, -3, the numbers start this way on the negative side of the number line. So you always want it to make it match up what a real number line looks like. Alright, real quick before you go, show me on your hand from 1 to 5 fingers. 1 means I don't get this at all. 5, this is really super easy. Or anything between. Show me your understanding of this lesson. There is 0?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll work with you this afternoon. Alright, file this in your notes. And we will practice more of this tomorrow. You'll have a great day.
I'll come to your house.
Okay, that'll be fine. Blake, if you want to come to your normal time also, I can work with you.
Oh, I'm done.
If you're